All right, so they've not seen these, so this will be fun. I'm excited for this. We're going to run through these. Maybe at the end, if you have some spontaneous questions, we can do that too, but we'll just start tackling these. Most of these questions came specifically from your sessions, so we'd love to hear both your insights, though, and input, though, for sure. Number one, what are some practical examples of how to relationally leave father and mother? Or maybe what it looks like when you don't do that. Can you expound on that idea of leaving father and mother?
So a lot of that is where are you having your deepest emotional needs met? And you can tell when somebody is going deep with a parent in a way that they're not with each other. The content, the things that are being talked about, where you're left like, why didn't you talk to me about that? Why didn't we unpack that? That's something very private. That's something that feels like it's inside of our marital relationship. So that's the thing that comes to my mind immediately, and that's what I see often. It's just, you just go to, and it's not that you don't have that with mom or dad.
And sometimes, like, the daughter-in-laws or the spouse will say, you listen to your mom and you don't listen to me.
Yeah.
Paula, can you talk to Sam? He listens to you better.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be in the middle like that at all.
So it's, you should still have a deep relational connection with your parents. And so there's nothing wrong about that, but it should not take the place of what is supposed to be happening here. This is the deepest. And so as your relationship matures, there are things that you probably will start to confide in each other that you might not even, they're so personal and so deep that you might not even confide in your parents about. It's just no longer appropriate with them. It's just something that you share together. So that's what I meant by that, and there's a lot of nuances to that, but I want Paula to know that I'm going to her first and foremost for my emotional, needs, that kind of thing.
All right. If you're willing, share one of your biggest struggles in your marriage and how you overcame it.
Do we agree?
I kind of alluded. The way I teach is a lot of self-disclosure, and because I just want you to know that I'm preaching to the choir here. So I think the biggest struggle, at least for me, is or has been listening in a way where she feels understood. So that's been the biggest learning curve for me. And tied with that is just riding around on that horse of contempt. I know it all, I know better, I know what needs to happen here, and really not listening to her heart. So that's been my biggest struggle.
And I think that probably that first year of marriage, just figuring out some of that stuff were some bumpy things. Just, he wanted to play basketball all day, and I wanted to be with him. So that was something as real newlyweds that we had to struggle. We struggled with a little bit to compromise, and I needed to let him play basketball, and then he needed to want to be with me on his free time too.
But
we traveled with this ministry, so we had afternoons off in the summer.
Yeah, but that still spills into, we're all busy. I mean, I would say pastors are busy, but you're busy. We're all busy. We have the potential. I always told people I could work 80 to 100 hours a week as a pastor if I chose to. There's always something to do. So even that's an example early on, but that still carries on. Am I going to prioritize the relationship? Am I going to come home? Am I going to be present? Or am I going to still be so preoccupied with other things, career, visions, passions of what God's called me to do, all that kind of stuff. So it's still, something that you have to manage ongoing.
So do you manage those through conversations? Is it, like you talked about your State of the Union, do those kind of come out in those State of the Union conversations you have? If she feels neglected or like you're spending too much time on ministry, where do those conversations happen?
Well, my family background is real just blunt, and you just wear your feelings on your sleeve and you just talk. We were a very conversation family. So I was just natural for me to say, what? You're going to go play basketball again every single afternoon? That, and it probably wasn't in the best attitude. I didn't have the best attitude.
But later, you're going to another meeting. You've already been to 3 meetings this week. So don't get hung up. I mentioned the State of the Union. Don't formalize. There's the idea of immediacy. So we can have a State of the Union moment at any moment. That was hard for me. My family tend to hide in things.
Push things under the rug. And
So I had to adjust to that. But I began to realize that was a bid for emotional connection. You're ignoring me. Church is more important to you. Your work, all the good things, and you're not attuned to what's happening here or even our boys. So you don't have to put that off. State of the Union, if nothing's going on, it could be, hey, how are you doing, and that kind of thing. But most of that happened in the moment.
Great questions. How do you approach or work through theological differences in your marriage? What if you get married and you just think differently about some topics, about some of these biblical principles we talked about? What if you just don't see eye to eye on all of those things?
That's a good one. It's like any fellowship in my mind, and this is just me, that you can have with other brothers and Christians. And so you do have to think, did I walk in and she's reading the Quran? Is she questioning the deity of Christ? I mean, if you look at heresy in the New Testament, it's the big stuff. So I think we can get too nuanced and not make room for some disagreements like that at the end of the day are not a hill to die on. So I would not make too big of a deal out of stuff that Christians tend to make a big deal out of, unless it's a big deal. And so just research in the New Testament what the heresies were all about, the deity of Christ, the gospel, Gnosticism, just all of that. Those are the big things. And those would be worth engaging on. But we just don't really debate theology that much. We talk about it. And we might have some differences, but it's not a major thing for us. We match up pretty good theologically. That's the biggest thing,
If there is a pattern of negative responses, what are some practical steps you can take to not live in a state of expecting a negative response?
I'll let you answer that because I'm usually more negative. I'm usually the realist in our marriage. And that sounds more positive, doesn't it, to say realist instead of negative?
So what I'm learning is if there's certain responses, whether you call them negative or critical or defensive, I'm noticing that, and I'm always wondering what's beneath that. Why is Paula attacking me right now? What's at the root of that? She's not feeling really good about things and just out of nowhere attacking me. Something's not right. It could be a lingering hurt. It could be something that's unresolved. It could be she just doesn't feel cared for. So I want to go there first on things that don't, and again, that's where we want to notice. We want to listen. What's going on? And so my response, if I'm responding right, is what's going on. What are you feeling right now? What's going on? And I do feel like you're being really negative toward me. So I'm not attacking the negativity. Like it's wrong to be negative. I would never want to do that if that negativity is coming from something that I've caused just out of not loving her well and caring for her. Because generally, if someone feels loved and cared for by you, that's what we all want. I want to be loved. I want to be wanted. I want to be known. I want to be cared for. Just all those things.
Can you sing that song? I want
No, I'm not
you
going
to
to.
want
No.
me.
No.
I need you to need me. I'm going to sing it then.
No.
He is a really good singer. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
She's a good manipulator.
Let's think of a positive word for that. Influencer.
Encouragement. Influencer, yes. She's an influencer.
I love your voice.
I want you to want me. There you go. So when these negative things happen, even the 4 horsemen, if she's up on one of those horses, and she is all the time, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
But I don't want to attack that. It's my cue that something's not right. And so that's where I want to go first. That's what I'm learning to do.
You're a sweetie.
Thank
That's
you.
good. What do you do if it seems like your spouse doesn't want to change? If you just seem like you're in a stuck, broken marriage? Any advice? If they have no desire to change, you just feel like this is the person I'm stuck with the rest of my life and it's broken.
My mom was in a tough situation, and she was so focused on my dad, and she realized that she had the focus on the wrong place, and their marriage hit rock bottom, and they were close to divorce. And, my dad was a good guy and a good dad to me, and I was so little that I didn't see, that some of that stuff. But my mom said that God had to get a hold of her heart. And I'm not saying this is in every situation, but, as soon as she realized that she needed to change, it was like God answered her prayer, and my dad changed, came to Christ, and it was like a 360, a miracle in their life. And I always think of their example, and my mom's like, I just always was looking at him and what he was doing wrong and how he needed to change. And, and just hitting rock bottom like that is what brought my parents and what saved their marriage. It was obviously God, but she had to look at herself first.
So I think when you evaluate why people don't want to change, it could be sin and rebellion. So we all experience that even in our own life. We love our sin. So that you don't want to rule that out. But I also think, and again, I don't know what the context of that, I want my spouse to change, but if it's inside of a marriage, often a person gets to that point when they've lost hope. And so we want to at least think about that. Because if a person loses hope, they lose motivation. They might say, what does it matter anymore? So when you think of hopelessness, you think of levels of depression, there's just no motivation anymore. I feel like I'm in an impossible situation. So, I think, again, what Paula said is so good. We want to always think, are there things that I might be doing that's perpetuating that or adding fuel to that? Are there things I need to see in my own life? It's interesting, even with parenting, the Apostle Paul, the very first thing he told us to do as parents is go look in the mirror. Meaning, don't exasperate your kids. And we could all, if I had a whiteboard, parents can usually throw, a list of 12 to 15 things up on the board on how we tend to exasperate. But that's, before you get to the training instruction, at least look in the mirror, do some self-reflection. Is there anything I'm doing that's causing exasperation? In Colossians, the parallel text, that's causing embitterment. So what does an exasperated, bitter child look like? Well, they're acting out, they're disobeying, they're rebellious. And the root of that could be a parent that's causing embitterment and exasperation in them. So I often apply Ephesians 6:4 even in the context of marriage. I just want to look in the mirror first. And if I notice a lack of desire to keep working, and we've had some summit moments, I don't know if we can keep going this way. Something needs to change, those kind of moments. So I always want to do self-reflection first and at least be okay with, before I go to, you're just a rebellious wife, which I don't think I've ever said that to her in our entire marriage. But anyway, I don't know if that's helpful, but a lot of self-reflection, looking for pockets of hopelessness and exasperation. Because an exasperated spouse, they don't want to change. They're just, I give up. So that's what I encounter in the counseling room quite a bit.
How do you actually or practically live out the three forms of love, agape, phileo, eros, when you feel flattened under a spouse's ongoing sin? How do you love or respect someone when their behavior repulses you?
That's a hard one. It shouldn't be that way. And that's why the plea is to love and be loved and to forgive and be forgiven. So when you're not on that two-way street, it's so hard. And if that's where you're at, even right now, I'm so sorry. I think Peter gives the best encouragement for that, if there that we find, and that's, and even Paul in 1 Corinthians 7 says, if someone an unbeliever wants to live with you, just let them. So that inside of that was probably a lot of antagonism toward Christianity. Peter says, stop trying to change them, in essence, and just win them over, not with your words, but just by your life. So yeah, a lot of that's it's gonna be hard, but it is an opportunity to do what God does. And when I say this, I'm not saying that it's easy. It's probably why it chokes me up a bit. But to do what God does with us so often, loves us when we're not lovable, loves us when we're bent on doing what we want to do. And maybe by God's grace, see that unconditional love and grace break through. But there are a lot of husbands and wives in those situations. And you can't demand a return. It's such a gospel work. It's an awakening that I believe only God could do. I mean, we've put together up at Cornerstone intervention teams to go in and try to wake up the person, whether it's the wife or the husband. And apart from God intervening in their heart, doing what only God can do, the only thing we could do is move toward them in the way God moves toward us. And maybe there's a place for if it's a husband, for some godly men to step in and confront. And, scripture is given for instruction, reproof, correction, instruction in righteousness. Brothers, if someone among you is caught in sin, you who are spiritual, go. So there's a place for that. But As far as spouse to spouse, the call often is what Peter talks about in 1 Peter 3, and that's just to win them over without words, just by your godly behavior, your consistent, perpetual love for them, and just trust God to break through. But that's so hard. That's very hard.
Yeah, we have another hard one here. We're in kind of the category of sin. Like, how do you handle sin in the marriage? What do you do? And here's another hard one. How do you combat the fear that you're being lied to on a massive scale? The fear that your spouse is lying about fundamentally who they are, or what they believe. What if you just think your spouse is putting on a show to please you, and this isn't who they really are?
I'll let you take that one. I'm just kidding. So you hear all of those questions and those descriptions, and I think just common sense would say there's something fundamentally wrong there. There's a hiding, there's a growing isolation, a growing secrecy. So something is going on. And it could be, there are a lot of people that bring stuff into a marriage and the spouse was not aware, and it just all of a sudden, here it is. Addictions. I mean, I'm counseling with a couple right now, and the guy's been addicted to pornography since he was 13 years old, and she just never knew. So she basically married a guy addicted to pornography, and now she's personalizing it, thinking it's all about her. And it's just something that's been embedded in him for entire adolescence into young adulthood. So I forgot the questions.
Perpetual liar.
Yeah. So where does the lying come from? Why do we lie? And if it's perpetual, often there's a lot of things that go along with lying. So if somebody is hiding some type of behavior, they're just going to become a liar. Most people just don't start lying. They're building a world of isolation and secrecy to help maintain whatever is going on. So most of the time when I encounter, like guys that lying has become a habit, there's something else going on. A gambling addiction, alcoholism, porn addiction. They're just creating and maintaining a world of secrecy. And so in order to do that, you have to lie all the time. So when I encounter a liar, I'm always sensitive to something more that's going on in their life. And so that's the real issue. And yeah, lying is an issue. Ephesians 4, if you're a liar, stop lying and start becoming a truth teller. So we do want to deal with that actual sin, but there's always seems to be something bigger going on in their life. And that's really at the root of where we need to go with them. Does that make sense? And if that's your spouse, and if you are blessed to be a part of something like First Family, it's okay to wave the red flag and ask for help. We want you to do that because you feel trapped and you just feel like, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. And that's where your pastors and godly men or godly women can move in. It doesn't guarantee anything. We do that, and the heart has become so hard and that it may not end, but it's the best we can do. Those who are spiritual should restore them in hope that God will grant them repentance leading to a knowledge of truth. So it's always not just we're going to go in and we're going in knowing we can't make anything happen here. This is going to have to be a work that God does, and then granting them repentance leading to a knowledge of truth. But if you're in that situation, please ask for help. And your pastors and leaders will work with you on what's the best way to move into a situation where you feel trapped and hopeless.
Thanks.
Next, we are talking about kids and parenting and how that affects our marriages. What advice do you have for building or maintaining a strong marriage in the demanding years with young kids at home?
Steve always says, watch more Barney. He tells them, go back in the living room and watch Barney. Your mom and I are talking.
The starting point to great parenting is a great marriage, and that sounds very cliche, and it's not a cliche. It's the truth. So the best thing you can give your kids is a strong, healthy marriage where they see it. And I had no problem telling them, leave this room. I am talking to your mom, and do you want me to have a good relationship with your mom? Yes or no? Yes, Daddy. Okay, leave. So, or going on a walk. Can we ride our bikes with you? No. Stay home. We are going on our walk to talk and be together. Do you want us to have a healthy marriage? Yes or no? Yes, Daddy. So, seriously, they need to know, and it's okay to say, she is my priority. Or even if they start sassing with her, I mean, I'm in there in a second. In between, like, it's not don't talk to your mom that way, it's don't talk to my wife that way. I love her, and she is other than Christ, my top priority. So I need to love her and protect her well. So I just wanted our boys to see that. So you do make your marriage the priority, and your kids should know that. And again, you're not neglecting them, but they know there is space that is just for us. And you want to teach them that and talk about it and have them honor that space, because we want them to want us to have a great marriage. So we just were very open about that.
Yeah, and we always, in our mind, we were balanced and flexible. And
Yes.
they felt very loved. I mean,
Yes.
they would go on plenty of walks with us, and we were, I was a stay-at-home mom, so it wasn't that we were, but he would help me not be over protective or over nurturing. He'd say, that baby can drink his own bottle. Let that baby, let him stand on the chair to eat. He doesn't have to sit on your lap. So he always pushed me.
But if they begged to go on the walk, we would say, we'll be back in 30 minutes, and then we'll go on another walk. So we did so much with them. So they also felt like a priority. So don't misunderstand that. This was the first priority. So again, divorce at 5 years because of kids often, careers and kids. And so I don't want my career to get in the way. I don't want my kids to get in the way. Even though I have to work to provide, and I want my kids to know me and to feel loved by me. But this is the priority.
And a lot of times the conflict that we did feel and the stress in our marriage was after we had kids. We really didn't argue that much until our baby came. And I was tired.
But it does. That's when you start really getting challenged. So you have to create a space where you can talk to each other about that stuff, where you can call each other out, where she could say to me, you're leaving again, and I need you here. So there's an opportunity to allow, or there's the need to allow each other as you're parenting. If there's a mom and dad in the home, single parents, have a different scenario, but where you have to allow each other to speak into each other's life on how you're going to move forward with it, because you've never done it before. And so you need to move forward together.
With balance, flexibility, and common sense.
Yes.
There's a couple questions on this same theme, so I'm getting the sense of like overwhelmed, stressed out, busy parents of young kids. So one of these questions about like, on top of all that, I'm supposed to disciple my kids, point them to Jesus, spend time with them, doing Bible study. Like, you feel that like pressure these parents have to just be amazing at everything, what advice do you have for them? Like, I got to be a great parent, a great spouse. I got to disciple my family, love my neighbors. You can just feel the list get long.
Okay, I want you to talk, but I want to respond to this real quick. Neglect has as much of a traumatic effect on kids as maybe physical abuse, to be neglected. So when you hear that, if you're just present, and if you are just with, you're way down the road. You're going to do okay. And so what we often discover with parents, and even in ours parenting, is parents that get way too stressed out about parenting. And the most important things are simple. Hold them. Nurture. Listen. Just let them talk to you. Get up close. Be present. Be attuned to what's happening. Don't neglect. So we're saying that more and more and more with younger parents. Don't overthink it. Sometimes even stop reading books. Because it's just
Kids books or adult parenting books?
parenting books. Like, I did a family camp one time, and they said, "What books are you bringing?" And I said, "None." Parents often don't need to read another book. Just go home and put your phone away and put your laptop away and play a game with your kids. So back when Super Nanny was on, anybody remember Super Nanny? She always taught them how to play games together, and it just seems so odd to people. Why are we learning how to play games? I want you to help me know how to discipline my kid. And parenting really can be so simple. And so we just want to at least say that to you. What would you add to that?
Well, you nailed it, but I mean, I was just going to say, give yourself grace.
Yeah.
I think when I was in my young 30s and between 30 and 40, I just was too hard on me, myself, and too hard on us. Our boys were really active. I wanted them to know, we wanted them to have piano lessons, sports, Awana. Stephen in 5th grade campaigned to be the mayor of his class, and then there was band, and then there was the Grand Prix, and we had to make all those cars. Do you guys have Grand Prix and Awana? I mean, the kids love it, but it puts a lot of stress. And in March, trying to get everything done, and then baseball season, and it was just like, wow. We just kind of had a meltdown one year, and just looking back, I would tell myself, just relax. It's okay if you stay home this Wednesday night. And I just could have been easy. It could have been easier.
So that question was training instruction, if I'm remembering, framed. And so don't jump too quickly to that side of Ephesians 6:4. So before you have the training instruction, don't exasperate. Bring them up is the word, the idea there is nurture. So you have, whether you want to use the word fair or a non-exasperating environment that's filled with nurture. And so a lot of parents come in exasperated. I'm doing all these things. Spanking doesn't work. I've got my rules. And I will often ask the very next question, when is the last time your kids saw you laugh? And they stare at me like, what does laughter have to do with parenting? And the last time I remember, parenting is a very relational thing. It's just, kids need nurture. They need to feel loved and wanted and accepted, and they need hugs, and they need you to get on the floor and roll around with them and tickle them and play and touch and all that kind of stuff that sets the right tone. And Dobson, in his book, Dare to Discipline, which he's still alive, right? Okay. I teach a lot of young parents, and I throw these names out, and they're like, we don't have a clue. Dare to Discipline was a game changer, and it's still in print.
There's a book for you.
So, yeah.
Read more books.
It's not it's more of a ideological, environmental. What's the environment we want to create? And that's what's often missing. So just go home and hug them and kiss them and play a game.
Well, and that is also true in a marriage. Lots of fun and laughter.
Yes.
All right, now we're moving on to older kids. So kids are grown out of the house, but not pursuing Jesus. So do you have any tips on how to navigate that well and not let that impact your marriage?
You want to take that one?
Well, I know you have a good answer, so. Well, we just kind of leave that with God. And all of our boys' walks with Christ, they don't match, but they all believe in Jesus. And we try not to have expectations and want them to all, do it the way we did it or look like our faith.
So if they're out of the home, if they're adults, they've been launched. They're gone. And the relationship has changed. It's different. Not that we had any power to coerce them to Jesus when they were in, the adolescent phase, but you're doing things to influence that the best you can. So my sister, my dad was a pastor, missionary. All pastors' kids and missionary kids turn out perfect, right? And she just took off and was gone. And they tried to manipulate her back and judge her back. She was gone. And that's hard to see that and want to intervene, but the relationship is different. And I'm putting together a class for Cornerstone this fall, parenting adult children, because so many parents of adult children are struggling. How do we posture ourselves in the lives of our adult children? It's different, and it's much more peer. And so I start to think about, as I'm talking with parents, and as Paula said, fortunately, we're not there. Our boys are doing great, and we have a great relationship with them. But how would you posture yourself in the life of any other adult? That your neighbor, someone you work with, that you want to see come to Christ or come back into relationship with Jesus? How would you move into their life? What kinds of things would you do and not do? So that's generally the best advice I can give parents. What would that look like? And really the way you move into the life of your adult child that's not with Christ has to be very similar. It's just a evangelistic effort. And I don't run over to Adam's house, my next door neighbor, and blow in there and say, repent or you're gonna die in hell, He and I are just building a relationship, and I've snowblowed his driveway because his arm was in a sling. And he was out trying to do his with one arm. I'm like, dude, let me help you. And they gave us cookies, and so something's happening there. But that's the best, I think, and others might disagree with me, but the best way we can move into our adult children. Otherwise, we risk pushing them further and further away. So we want to keep the orbit happening. We don't want to launch them to Mars. We just want to launch them into orbit and maybe still have the opportunity to have an influence. I use the prodigal son story all the time of what was that dad like. And you don't see him, and I know it's just a story, but it is a picture. We don't see him chasing his son from place to place. We see him waiting. And his posture is unconditional love, because that's what the prodigal son found when he came back home. And he didn't think he would find that, but he did. So just maintaining that. We're going to love you no matter what. even if we don't agree with how you're living your life right now. There's so much more to say on that, but that's kind of the gist of it.
Here's the last question we have. And then maybe we'll do a little spontaneous if we have any. How do you keep the flame alive in the bedroom during parenting newborn/little one phase? And then I have a follow-up question, which is high school or middle school. I'm completely asking for a friend, but like, let's say hypothetically a 15-year-old, 12-year-old, 7-year-old, 2 older girls, 1 younger boy. Purely hypothetical.
Okay, so back to
Scheduled.
Yes, back to what I said, schedule. So honestly, there were times and still are where we got a 2-hour window to make this happen. So I'm not going to tell you when that is. I know when it is. We know the rhythm of even our adult children, when they might show up and all that. So, and I'm glad you're laughing, because just laugh about it and make it a fun conversation. You want to forget spontaneity. And if spontaneity happens, feel blessed. But don't count on it. Because when you're waiting for spontaneity, it gets into, why isn't she initiating? She never initiates. Or why doesn't he initiate? I don't know what it is for you, but and that can just lead to resentment. And so you don't want your sex life to lead to resentment. Just laugh and talk about it.
Well, and when the kids were really little, you just gotta put them to bed, right? You just gotta, no, you're not sleeping in our bed, Sometimes you get in habits of that with newborns or 2-year-olds or whatever. They come and get in bed. But if you try to work towards getting them to sleep at a decent time.
Here's another old guy named Dennis Swanberg. You ever heard of him, a comedian? I see one gray-haired guy back there nodding his head. He's got a funny sketch. He's a Christian comedian.
You can find him on YouTube.
Yeah, and one of them, he tells his kids, they come get in bed with him. He said, get out. He had been gone on a trip, and he's home, and he's like, you, get out now. I think he even paid them money to stay out.
Yeah.
But just have those conversations. Be open. Just be open about it. And, we had...
What did that one couple we know? They said that Sunday afternoon it was nap time for everybody.
Yeah, nap time. Whatever your code word
Why
is.
is your door locked, Mommy?
Yeah. I don't remember who that... I remember that, but I don't remember who that was.
The longs? That's not who I was thinking of.
That's good.
That's good. Great questions. Thank you, guys.